Hey, welcome to Real Talk, where I give real answers to real questions from real worship leaders. If you are a real worship leader with a real question and you want a real answer, head right here and submit your question for a future episode. Got some good questions this week? Let's talk about it. We're a small music team in a small church. 3 of our musicians are skillful enough to take turns in leading. 3 other non-leading musicians, however, struggle with the fundamentals, like rhythm, counting scales, and even sometimes finding notes and chords. Over the years, there has been some improvement, but not nearly as much as I had hoped. This really limits the aesthetic quality of the music we make. The opinions of church members are, however, a bit divided on this. Some brethren mention they are satisfied with the quality of the music. Others say that they are not satisfied with the quality of the music. I myself am in the second category, but I have kind of lost hope on teaching these 3 musicians. Maybe I'm a perfectionist, and maybe I have to accept the status quo, which will be a challenge. Some insight? How do I deal godly with this situation? How hard can I push people for training? What standard can I set? How forgiving and generous do I need to be? Is there ever a point where I should ask people not to make music for lack of skill, or is that the self-centered whim of a perfectionist? Or do I just need to work on myself, and is this God's way of blessing me with patience? I love your string of questions at the end, by the way. You're like, how do I deal godly with this? How hard can I push people? What standards can I set? Should I be forgiving and generous? I always have thoughts like that in my head when I'm thinking through questions like this. And I'll start here, and I think that this needs to be said. There is a baseline. There is a baseline that we need to set for people who want to lead in musical worship on Sundays. Some people will go, oh, it's just all about the heart, and as long as their heart's in the right place, then we should let them lead. Some people will take it to the other extreme and say, I don't really care about their heart. It's only about the musical skill, and as long as they're good with musical skill, then I'll let them lead. I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle. We want people who have hearts that are pure in their worship leading, but we also want people who are musically gifted. They don't need to be the absolute best musicians in the world, but they need to be musically gifted, or else they're not really using their gifts to serve the church. They're just trying to play music, and it's not really a gift. I don't know how else to say it. And so there should be a minimum threshold. So I think the minimum threshold depends on the expectations that you have for your worship team. Some worship teams would be like, we need to have all the music memorized, and we need to be able to play the intricate parts that we need to play, depending on the style of music that we're playing. Some people, you could take it maybe too far. Not that those things are necessarily too far. I'm just saying we could take it too far and say the bar is way up here, when in reality the bar should be down here. But I want to point to the fact that there is a bar that needs to be set, that people need to get over. Why? So that they aren't distracting in worship. And I think that is the line, the general guideline that I would follow. Are these people distracting in worship? Because if they are, then we're kind of subverting the purpose of our gatherings of being edifying for people. Because we're not being edifying, we're just distracting them. And instead of people saying, these are glorious truths that we're singing, that we're using to teach and admonish one another, and I'm able to do it with thankfulness in my hearts to God, Colossians 3:16, instead they're saying that person, they keep hitting the wrong chord every song, multiple times, and it's thrown me off. If that's happening, then we are subverting the purpose of our corporate worship gatherings. The purpose of our corporate worship gathering is not, hey, let's put somebody up there to please them because they think that they're using their gift to serve the church when they're not actually skilled in it, but we'll do it to make them happy. The purpose of our corporate worship gathering is to edify each other and to glorify God. And so if the musicianship or lack thereof of worship team members is hindering those things in a significant way, then that's probably when you should have a conversation with them. Now, I understand that is not a black and white thing. That's a gray area. And so you have to discern where that line is. And that's something that's going to take wisdom on your part. Because like I said, the bar needs to be set somewhere, but the bar doesn't need to be set way up here. It needs to be set somewhere here. And then there are musicians of varying skill on our worship team. Every worship team that I've served on, there have been musicians of varying skills. Some of them, I'm like, I would trust them with my life musically. Some of them, I'm like, we're just holding on by a thread here. But at least they're holding on by a thread. I've served on plenty of worship teams where there has been that gap in skill level, but I've always set a bar for people on my worship team. You must meet this expectation. Now, let's talk about specifically what some of those expectations might be. First of all, let's talk about musicians, instrumentalists. You've got to know how to play the chords. All right, I'm not going to put somebody up there where it's like this song has a B chord in it and the person doesn't even know how to play a B chord or know how to get there in the time that they need to hit the chord change. I mean, that's what it means to play a song. To play a song, you have to be able to play the notes of the song. And I'm not saying that there's never room for mistakes, but if you can't consistently get to a B minor chord, then you can't play the song, and therefore you shouldn't be helping to lead the song. That seems pretty clear to me. So we've got that. We've got timing. Timing is a little bit more of a gray area to me, because it's like you either hit the chord or you didn't hit the chord. Timing is like, were they a couple beats off here or there? Maybe, but I don't understand how there can be timing issues unless you're like the drummer or something, or you're leading a song by yourself. If you're playing with other musicians, you will get swept along in the flow of the song as long as the other musicians are all playing together. So I don't know how one person has a timing issue. You're either doing it or you're not. And then in that case, sometimes these things are combined together where you're not hitting the chords, and that creates a timing issue. So maybe delineate between what the problem actually is there. But basically, for an instrumentalist, if they can't make it through the song, they shouldn't be leading. I feel like that's a fair expectation. And then for singers, yeah, if they're flat all the time and they don't sound good, or they're creating a distraction through their lack of hitting notes or anything else you could think of that a singer would do that would be distracting during the service on a consistent basis, that is a skill issue, then they probably shouldn't be singing. Now, I will talk about the elephant in the room here in regards to all of this, because you said that these people are already on your team. It's one thing to say, hey, this person wants to join my team, but they aren't there musically, and then you can tell them no. It's a whole other thing to remove somebody from the team. And I've made several videos about that process that I'll link down in the description below about what to do with somebody who's on the team who shouldn't be on the team. But the general principle is this. My first act is not to instantly kick them off the team. I will give them things to work on, see how they respond to those things, check back in with them then and see if they've made any improvement. Then I'll keep giving them things to work on. And then maybe at some point down the line, after we have identified the problem, I've tried to help them, I've seen if they have actually tried to improve and put in the work to improve. Maybe somewhere down the line, I will say, okay, yeah, unless these things are fixed, these really need to be fixed before we can move forward. But that's way down the line. That's not like, especially if this person's been serving on your team for a while, don't just throw them off the team. That's never the right answer. You're just going to make somebody upset unless it's like an egregious thing. But even then, I mean, your church has already put up with them for however many months or years. What's a couple more weeks while you try to work with them in a healthy way to improve their singing? What's that gonna hurt? All right, you've done it for 6 months at this point. You've had a lack of leadership on your part for that much. Another month isn't going to destroy things completely. And in that, you will actually be able to work with the vocalist, for example, to try to help them get to the point where they need to be. Now, it is important to have those expectations spelled out for new worship team members, and that's why I put together the Worship Team Toolkit. You'll find it linked in the description below. It's my worship ministry overview, sort of a code of conduct for new worship team members who join my team, and present worship team members as well. And in that, I spell out the logistical guidelines, the musical guidelines, and the spiritual guidelines for people who want to be on the worship team at my church. So if you don't have a document like that and you want one like that, then check it out down in the description below. You can copy and paste it pretty much right into your own worship ministry. So check that out. Other than that, until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.